Vermicomposting is composting with worms. It's super fun, super cool, and you get some really amazing products out of it. Not only do you get the worm castings themselves, but you can make worm compost tea with it as well. Let me show you how I make it and the key differences between compost tea and compost leachate. So right now I'm using the urban worm bag. I find that the continuous system like this is a lot less work and a lot easier to deal with than the worm towers, which I've had in the past. I had the Worm Bin 360, I think, is one of the stacking ones. They're great and all for small spaces, but they require more work than this one does. I'm going to harvest some worm castings and bring them inside to make some worm compost tea. Here you go, homemade worm compost. You could use this as is in your garden as an amendment, but it's supercharged another step when you make a worm compost tea, and that's what we're gonna do with it right now. All right, I've got rainwater with a air bubbler. I've got more molasses, and I bagged up some of the worm compost into 2 little bags. Normally I have bigger bags, but I can't find my bigger bags, so 2 smaller bags will do just as well. Let's come on in and I'll show you what I'm gonna do. All right, first thing I'm gonna do is add a couple of cups of molasses in there. I want a sugar source for all the microorganisms. It's a lot. There's a couple of cups of molasses. Now I'm gonna steep these just like a tea, kind of where you get the name compost tea from. And that's all there is to it. This needs maybe 24 or 36 hours. Let's say 24 to 48 hours. And then this is gonna need to be diluted with more rainwater and spread onto my garden. This is gonna rock and roll. This looks like good stuff already. So it's been about 36 or 40 hours at this point, a little more than a day and a half. I like seeing the frothy bubbles up on top. That makes me think that there's life going on in there. At this point, I would just dilute it with more dechlorinated water, preferably rainwater, at a rate of maybe at least 5 to 1, if not 10 to 1, this to water. So you just need a little bit of this and a lot of water. It's my winter, so I don't have a lot of really good vegetables growing right now, but I'm still going to spray this on my soil to keep my soil microbes living and healthy and happy. The worms break down organic matter in the soil, creating nutrient-dense castings that contain beneficial microbes, nutrients, and trace minerals. Worm tea is rich in beneficial microbes like bacteria, fungi, and protozoa, and soluble nutrients including nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and trace minerals. It is often used as a natural fertilizer and soil conditioner. People often use it as a foliar spray, but I prefer to use it as a soil amendment and soak the soil around the base of my plants. Compost leachate, on the other hand, is the liquid that flows through a compost bag or pile or stack, primarily after it rains or after you feed it excessively. When there's a lot of moisture in there and it drips down through the bag, it almost percolates through the bag. That's leachate. If it comes out the bottom before the compost is done, that's compost leachate. It's a runoff that occurs when water moves through the compost material, leaching out soluble nutrients and organic matter. Leachate is produced when water percolates through the compost and picks up dissolved organic matter, nutrients, and sometimes pathogens. It can be a byproduct of improperly managed compost, especially if it's too wet or the compost material is not balanced. Compost leachate can contain a wide variety of nutrients, including nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, but its quality is often inconsistent. It can also contain organic matter, microbes, and in some cases, undesirable pathogens or toxins, especially if the compost was not properly managed. While some gardeners use compost leachate as a liquid fertilizer, it is generally less reliable and potentially less beneficial than worm tea. It may need to be diluted or filtered, and its application can sometimes be risky if the leachate has not been properly aerated or if the compost was not sufficiently decomposed. Alright, the key differences between compost tea and compost leachate. Worm tea is cultivated to have only beneficial microorganisms in it. Compost leachate has a lot of microorganisms, but since it's not fully decomposed, you're going to have a lot of bad and harmful microorganisms in there. When the compost is fully decomposed, you know you only have beneficial microbes. When it's not fully decomposed, you don't know that yet. Worm tea is more consistent than compost leachate. Even though I'm always adding different materials, compost tea is made with fully decomposed material. It's fully ground and it looks like nice store-bought material. Compost leachate, because it's not fully decomposed, is going to contain whatever happens to be living in there at the moment. Key differences in the production of the two. Compost leachate just flows through the bag or through the tower, and you can use the nozzle at the bottom, or I have a collection bin for mine. Compost tea, however, you have to wait till it's fully decomposed, get it from the bottom section where there's no more worms, and use that to make your compost tea with aerated water and molasses and thyme. In summary, compost tea is much better than compost leachate. Compost leachate can even be dangerous sometimes, where properly made compost tea is very beneficial for your garden, for your plants, and for your soil. Don't use compost leachate if you're composting at home. Throw it out and make proper compost tea.